All right, Super Bowl preview. I'm getting this out as quick as I can here. I don't want to make you wait for the Super Bowl preview, staying up late on the East Coast. But you know what? I'm excited to talk about these two teams. So yeah, let's get into it. And I'm not going to do the breaking it up. We're going to do a full Super Bowl preview here in this video. Although, you know, it's the right after the conference championship games. Some of my opinions will almost certainly change. If there's anything in this video you want to hear me get into more detail about, let me know in the comments below, and I just might make a video. I'm going to make a lot of kind of individual videos, such as like, oh, you know, this guy versus this guy. How will that go in the Super Bowl throughout the next couple of weeks? So be on the lookout for all that. But yeah, let's talk about this real quick. Last thing I'll mention before we finally get into it. I do have a movie channel. If you want to hear me talk about movies, you can check that out. The link is in the description below. But yeah, without further ado, let's finally get into it. So as always, I'm going to start off with some charts before we get into the film, and then finally my predictions. I'm going to do some charts on the Chiefs offense versus the Eagles defense, and then some film on this side of the ball. Then we'll get into charts on the other side of the ball, and then do some film on the other side of the ball, and then finally my final score predictions. So yeah, you see the chart next to me. These are where each of these teams ranks in terms of PFF grades. I think we can all agree that the Chiefs are in fact they had the 13th best quarterback. That feels fair, right? No, obviously, I think we all can drop the 3 off of that probably. But opinions on that aside, definitely the receiving core has not been a strong suit this season. They have some players, and we'll get into it. But in my opinion, at least, according to, and as well as PFF's opinion, it hasn't been a strong suit. The pass blocking has been kind of up and down, another thing we are going to get into. But in the running game has been, I would say, good, and so does PFF, 7th best run blocking. The Eagles is good across the board. First in coverage, second in pass rush and run defense. I mean, there's no hole in this defense. Let's start with the Chiefs offensive line. So you see the starting 5, Joe Thuney, who was left guard. He's moved over to left tackle. The numbers next to each of these players' names are going to be for Humphrey, Smith, and Taylor at the bottom 3. That's where they ranked in PFF grades. For Thuney and Caliendo, I'm just giving you their PFF grades in the regular season at the position that they will be playing because they don't have enough snaps to qualify. So Thuney, really good at left guard. Grades have been so-so at left tackle. Did play, I thought, I haven't seen the grades and I didn't do a deep dive, but I thought he played really well against Buffalo. Mike Caliendo, though, definitely a weak spot at that left guard position. That's the issue, is you move Thuney over to tackle because the left tackle situation's been bad. That's worked okay. He's been all right there, but now you lost your all-world left guard, who I believe was he all-pro? If not, should have been. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are amazing. Jawan Taylor, all right in pass protection, just not a run blocker. They don't really rely on him in the running game too much. They can scheme around that. As for the Eagles' defensive line, I mean, it's great player after great player. Josh Sweat and Jalen Carter, both are out there for just about every snap. Carter did get banged up in the conference championship game, but he came back in. I'm assuming he's fine and has 2 weeks to rest up as well. So Sweat and Carter more or less play every snap. They might take the occasional one off, but they're every down players. Milton Williams and Nolan Smith will both then get those are the quote-unquote 4 starters. They get the next most playing time. You have, Hunt, Davis, and Ojimo, who are the 3 other edge rushers. Guys, or not edge rushers, defensive linemen. They're all guys who can play. There's no weak spot on this Eagles defensive line. And when you think about Mike Caliendo versus one of these Eagles defensive linemen, could be an issue. We'll get into that a little bit more once we get into the film. As for the receiving core, so what the Eagles like to do is they like to play a lot of zone coverage. They will play some man. Vic Fangio will try different things if he feels like it's necessary. But you see, part of what makes this Chiefs team so good is, so this chart takes a little bit of explaining, but it's each player's stats when they're playing against man coverage and when they're playing against zone coverage. These are their PFF grades in yards per route ran. You see, the yards per route ran stat, there aren't a lot of players with a significant jump one way or the other. Really, this is a team that can beat you regardless of what coverage you're playing. That's kind of the Chiefs' whole MO, is they want guys who can be good in any situation, because their goal isn't, hey, how badly can we beat the Jacksonville Jaguars? Their goal is, how many different ways can we win? And that's what they can do. So for the Eagles, who are going to play some zone, they got guys who can beat them. Kelsey can beat them. Like they should be all right there. As for the Eagles' secondary players, similar chart. This time it is PFF grades and passer rating against. You see, Quinyon Mitchell hasn't always been the best when he's in man. Really good in zone, though. I mean, they've all been good in zone. There's no weak spot in zone coverage with this defense. It's been a great zone defense. You do wonder, who's it going to be on Kelsey? Is it Zach Bond or Owen Burks? Probably Zach Bond if you're putting a linebacker who isn't included here, but Zach Bond's been amazing. He's an all-pro. You also have C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. You might be able to take away Kelsey a little bit. He'll have some catches, you would assume, but you might be able to limit him, maybe is the better way to phrase it. Can you win on the outside against Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, or really Darius Slay would probably be the two, Mitchell and Slay. Can you win on the outside against one of those? I don't know. There's no weak spot with this Eagles defense. It's really strong. Last number before we get into the film for this side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes, when he is blitzed, his numbers, I bumped my microphone, his numbers actually do go down a little bit. He is better when he is not blitzed, 95.6 passer rating and a 12-point jump in PFF grade. He has been better this season when you drop back and play coverage and he can pick you apart. Let's get into the film. First, let's start off with a play like this. So I brought up the left guard situation. Mike Caliendo going up one-on-one. This is going to be against Jordan Phillips of the Buffalo Bills. One-on-one matchup, and it's a big point in the game, too. 4.5 minutes left in a tie game. In fact, it was looking like this might end up being a season saver for Buffalo. Because watch how there is that quick pressure. You just have to think, if that's Jalen Carter, there could be issues. And you can try to help it out. You can put, a double team over there, but then that allows you to run stunts. You can play off of that. Like, you can't only do one thing the whole time. And also now Trey Smith's great. Do you want to leave him one-on-one against Jalen Carter if you are helping out your left guard every play, or even other interior defensive linemen who are very good for Philadelphia? If there's an advantage, Philadelphia can take advantage of it. The good news, though, is for the Chiefs, there might only be one disadvantage, and maybe they can withstand that. Going over to coverage, part of it is like, okay, this play is a good example to show because it's going to be a zone coverage concept, and they have a play designed to beat zone coverage. A receiver running a deep shot, another receiver running over the middle, and they're going to run play action. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, I brought up that the Eagles, there's no weak spot in the defense. They cover so well. Here's what the Chiefs want. The Chiefs don't want to have to be in a one-on-one situation and hope their guy wins. They want stuff like this, where watch how this play action, holds the linebackers in for a bit. No one covers the over-the-middle route to Juju Smith-Schuster. Look at how open he is on this play. Okay, the Eagles do a good job at not making these mistakes. So do the Chargers, and they just gave up a big play to Juju Smith-Schuster. I know this is an extreme example, but the reality is the Chiefs are so good at scheming up against zone coverage that you're going to have to be really smart when you're Philadelphia. You're going to have to get through your stuff very quickly. Because this is one of the things where sometimes I go wrong in these previews where I kind of get too personnel based, and it's not just about personnel, it's about how you're getting used. And for coaches, like Andy Reid's going to use this personnel really well. Fangio has to make sure his defense can react to it effectively. Of course, you're also going to get some of this stuff with Mahomes. Got to bring this up, like, hey, he's going to move a lot. You see on this play, it was a 3rd down and 7. The Chargers had to play covered. And the thing is, Mahomes isn't afraid to take hits in big games. He's not afraid to try and make guys miss in big games, and he's not afraid to do this. Watch him juke out that defender, flips it to Kelsey. That essentially iced the game for them. It allowed him to kill the final 2 minutes, where then they, doinked the field goal in to clinch the division. But that's the other thing you have to worry about. And really, you want to keep him inside the pocket, which makes pass rushing him harder, right? Because now you have to focus on almost playing run defense and pass rushing at the same time. But it's also kind of a thing where if you're the Eagles, you're just going to have to accept that Mahomes is going to do some of that. And, you're just going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to just hope you can, not have that happen to you every play. Because it won't happen every play, but it's going to happen some, and you're just going to have to deal with it. I'm also really fascinated in what happens in a situation like this. This is Xavier Worthy, who I have to say has all of a sudden come on, and he has just, been a fantastic downfield receiver. Before the playoffs, he wasn't really a contested catch guy here, but in this situation, one-on-one matchup down the field. Watch as Mahomes takes a snap. He's going to fire this one in Worthy's direction while getting hit, too, and is able to make the grab. So that's what Mahomes can do, right? Undoubtedly, he can make those throws while under pressure, and Worthy's done a nice job at making these contested catches. However, it's undeniably true that that's where Philadelphia wants the Chiefs to be in. That's what they're going to try and do. Get these obvious passing situations, keep Mahomes in the pocket, make him throw the ball quickly, and just trust Quinyon Mitchell and trust that Darius Slay can make the plays on the outside. And if they throw over the middle, trust your guys over the middle can make those plays because they've done it all season. They haven't played the Chiefs yet this season, though, so we'll see how it goes. And for the Chiefs, they don't want to be in that situation. They don't want obvious passing situations. So yes, they have Mahomes, and he'll make some of them work, but like, that's what they're going to try and avoid. But again, they can avoid those obvious passing situations so well because they do run the ball effectively, something we haven't really talked about. I don't know how that's going to go. I didn't bring that up too much because, like, yeah, that's a real question. How will the Chiefs run the ball remains to be seen. My guess is it would favor the Eagles, especially with Thuney now at tackle. My guess is that's what would happen. But yeah, I mean, I think you might have some more obvious passing situations, and they might have to convert on more of those. On paper, I mean, it's not a crazy take to say like, oh, I think that the Eagles have more matchup advantages in more spots than the Chiefs do. But again, you just have to remember that with great coaching and a great quarterback, you can make up for some of those disparities. Okay, other side of the ball time. You see a lot of good on the right side as well. PFF was not crazy about Hurts's passing, although they do like the Eagles receiving core better than the Chiefs at 11th best. Chiefs, though, 3rd best coverage. So, 2 of the top 3 coverage units will play in this Super Bowl. Having a good coverage is how you get here, right? Got to cover well. The Chiefs do a lot else really well, though, as well. Run defense has been very good. Pass rush, very good. Not quite Philadelphia's, but still very good. I think I agree kind of where PFF is at with these two defenses. Of both are elite coverage units. The Eagles are elite front 7. The Chiefs are very good front 7. Again, one of the weird things where PFF, so they say the offensive line's very good for the Eagles, 6th best at both pass blocking and run blocking. That checks out. They only have Saquon Barkley currently at 10th best rusher. He's the best rusher in football. That's a little silly. But as a whole, I mean, yeah, you look at this on paper, again, should favor the defense. Although, again, we can get more into the details and you can see where there maybe are some edges for the Philadelphia Eagles. First, this is a really interesting situation. So you see the Eagles' offensive line, and this is, the number next to them. Again, that's where they ranked in terms of PFF grades. On paper, this is elite, right? And it's been elite all season. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, and Lane Johnson. Okay, the worst is Mekhi Becton, who's ranked 18th. That's still really good. Some offensive lines, that would be the star of it. He's their weak spot. You see there's an asterisk next to Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. Both of them were injured going into the conference championship game. Jurgens started the game injured, but was kind of like he was available as a replacement if necessary, and it became necessary because Landon Dickerson had a knee injury. He ended up missing the rest of the game. Jurgens came in and played, and actually did all right, I thought, from my eye test. Again, didn't do a deep dive on it, but from what I saw, it seemed to look all right. So you assume if he could play at some point, at the end of that game, he will come in and who will be able to play the Super Bowl. Landon Dickerson, apparently he was still available as a emergency player, so you'd assume if he was available as an emergency player, then he would be okay for the Super Bowl. But again, we don't know. We thought Jurgens was going to be available for the conference championship game. That didn't happen, so that's A. And B is, if they do play, how healthy are they? You got Chris Jones coming to town. In fact, these are the Chiefs' defensive linemen. And again, it's usually talked about with Chris Jones and friends, but they have some other players. George Karlaftis and Charles Omenihu are really good really good defensive linemen here. I don't know why I almost said interior defensive linemen. No, really good defensive linemen here. Trayshawn Wharton, another player. Those are their 4 quote-unquote starters. But then you also have Mike Dana, Mike Pennell, and Felix Nduke Uzama, who all are good players. And again, if there is a weak spot on the interior, Chris Jones can take advantage. I will say, usually what happens is when a good offensive line and a good defensive line gets together, the good offensive line wins. That's typically how that works. Not always, but that's usually what happens. So you have to think, if the Eagles are healthy there, this is still a pretty significant matchup advantage for them. For the Eagles secondary, so again, just a refresher on what this page is, these are where each of them rank when they're playing in man coverage and when they're playing in zone coverage, their PFF grades and their passer rating against. You see that, PFF isn't crazy about McDuffie in man, likes him better in zone, but Jalen Watson has great numbers when he is in man coverage. 90 PFF grade, a passer rating against of 34.6, and in zone, not quite as good. Really, as a whole, the Chiefs, with the exception of McDuffie, usually aren't as good in zone, although it kind of does vary player to player. But usually, they like to play man. That's what they primarily do. And you have to wonder how good of a strategy that will be when you got A.J. Brown to deal with. Because this is the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, I'll probably get more into detail about some of this stuff in a future video later this week. But just kind of touching on everything. It's late here on the East Coast. I'm just trying to make sure I touch on everything on this video. But you see A.J. Brown and his numbers. The yards per route ran against man coverage, 4.27. And it's continued with a great performance against the Commanders where he killed man coverage there as well. They tried to put Marshawn Lattimore on him. It did not go well. They ultimately changed things up. I don't care who you put on A.J. Brown. He wins. That's just the situation. Maybe the Chiefs will, sometimes they have a tendency to figure out a way in these big games to actually have something work. But barring that kind of situation, I'll just say this. Going into the game, I'd be surprised if someone can lock down A.J. Brown one-on-one. As I mentioned, PFF really likes Jalen Watson, but it's nothing can beat a great throw and great catch. I don't care how good a defense it is. So, something you got to deal with. And again, you have other guys too. Devonta Smith is really good against both man and zone. Dallas Goedert is not an easy guy to deal with on top of it. So they have other players, but really A.J. Brown is the key to this passing attack. Finally, I had to look at Hurts's numbers because while the Eagles don't blitz much, the Chiefs are fourth most in football when it comes to blitz rate. You see, though, Hurts, slightly better PFF grades, slightly worse passer rating, really kind of a wash there. He's been fine against the blitz this year. You have to think that on some blitzes, he's going to throw the ball A.J. Brown's way. We'll see what happens. Getting into the film here, one thing I thought of is this play. So this is going to be a 4th down, 13 minutes left. It's ended up being kind of a controversial play, but it's going to be the tush-push thing. And the Bills like to do the tush-push. Obviously the Eagles invented it and perfected it, but other teams still do it. But here the Chiefs get a stop, and many people thought that the Bills probably still had the first down. I don't know. But the reality of the situation is the Chiefs did a great job at contesting that. And in this game, they were consistently stopping the tush-push that the Bills were trying to do. The Eagles perfected it, right? They're great at this. I'm fascinated in seeing what's going to happen. Can the Chiefs actually get some stops with the tush-push? I don't know. Am I betting on it? Probably not. Am I betting against it? Probably not either, right? I think that's one of those don't bet on it situations. I think that it's really hard to stop the Eagles' tush-push. But again, if they have an injury in the interior, does that affect things? If it's a different center, does that affect things? I don't know. Let's talk about this. I actually kind of brought it up earlier. It's A.J. Brown one-on-one against Marshawn Lattimore. Again, this is going to be similar to the looks he will have in the Chiefs game. It'll be a little different probably because a lot of times the Chiefs kind of show 2 safeties and then post-snap, send one and have them do something different. But, you'll have these looks. And Jalen Hurts, who takes the snap, he'll often throw it in this direction. He will give A.J. Brown a chance. Again, they know who they have in A.J. Brown. If you go all out and make sure everyone's over the middle of the field, you can have players on the outside. As you see here, Brown is able to make that grab. Great play by him. Great throw from Hurts. These guys have done this 1,000 times. And like I said, I don't care who you got out there. You just hope that they can battle if you're a Chiefs fan. You don't need them to shut A.J. Brown down. Can you get them to battle and make it tougher on A.J. Brown? That's the goal. Of course, we have to talk about the just traditional rushing game as well, and there's other passing stuff, of course. There's the depth players and all that stuff, but let's mostly focus on the rushing here because, listen, the Chiefs have stopped the run very well, and the Chiefs have a tendency in big games, even against good rushing offenses, to be able to slow down the rushing attack. So that's kind of why I wanted to show some Baltimore footage, because the Ravens had a very good rush defense this year. But you're going to see, they pull a couple offensive linemen, everyone's accounted for, and usually when they have everyone accounted for, they're able to make their blocks. This Eagles rushing attack, again, you assume they're going to get their place, right? Maybe the Chiefs will pull out a miracle, but you assume that this is going to be advantage for Philadelphia going in. Football's weird. Sometimes something on paper seems like it should be an advantage, and it just isn't. And like I said, I think the Chiefs can battle here, and like I do think they could get some stops. In fact, something like this is how it could happen, where you see there's multiple defense, it's a linebacker and a defensive back for the Ravens. Watch how they both kind of rush in really aggressively. They're able to help get Saquon Barkley down behind the line of scrimmage on a 3rd down and 1. If you can kind of guess correctly in these situations, that's another way that you can make good things happen. And while in a lot of situations that puts you in danger in play action, and it still kind of does here, the good news is with the way that the Chiefs run all these exotic blitzes and play a lot of man coverage is that play action just doesn't work as well against them as it does like against the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, who play a lot more zone, and you can kind of use that as a way to scheme guys open. So it's definitely a way that you can get some stops. And kind of like I said with A.J. Brown, you don't need to win every time. What you want to do with Saquon Barkley is, first off, your safeties have to tackle. The Chiefs have safeties who can tackle. You feel okay there. Your safeties have to tackle so you don't give up the 60-yard runs. And then you just have to battle. Can you maybe not stop them every time, but you give up a 10-yard run and then get a loss of 1, and now it's 2nd and 11. Okay, they're closer, but you feel good about that, right? Sure, maybe you'll give up a big A.J. Brown play, but then can you win another one? Or maybe just double team him and hope that you can cover Smith. Something like that might be the better move in that one. But again, if you're playing single safety deep, you kind of can't double him is the issue. I think it should be a great Super Bowl. There's so much good talent on this on both of these two teams that I'm excited for this one. I know I know people want the plucky underdogs to win, but sometimes the favorites are the favorites for a reason. That's what happened here. So let's get into predictions. So these are my predictions for how each offense will play. The Eagles' offensive points per drive on the year scored a really good 2.72 points per drive. Chiefs defense, very good 2.00 points per drive given up. My guess, I'll say 2.3. I think the Chiefs will be able to battle enough in the run defense game and won't get crushed there. A.J. Brown's going to have enough plays that we're still going to see in a game that the Chiefs maybe won't love defensively, but I think they'll at least be able to get some stops here and there, and Spagnuolo will be able to scheme some stuff up. And hey, if you're making Saquon Barkley block, you can take him out of the game, make him sit on a sideline because he just had to block for 3 plays, right? Blitzing helps with that. The other side of the ball, Chiefs offense scores a okay 2.33, above average, but I mean it's still pretty good actually, 2.33, but not elite, right? Points per drive. The Eagles' defensive points per drive is elite, 1.69. I believe that's best or at least close to best. I don't think it's best, but I think it's top 5 in football. My guess, I'm right at 2.3, though. I think the Chiefs will be able to do what they do. They'll scheme stuff up well. Yes, there is a massive matchup advantage with the Eagles' defensive line, and I do think the Eagles will be able to, again, battle in the secondary. But right off the bat, I'm guessing for a tie, I guess. Okay, first ever Super Bowl tie. No, I have to pick a winner, and listen, I've picked against the Chiefs before. I always feel stupid after I do it. As of right now, give me the Kansas City Chiefs. 26-23 in overtime will be my prediction. Will it go that way? Remains to be seen, right? And honestly, I could still change my opinion on this. This is my first reaction, my first thoughts, but I definitely might, who knows? In fact, I think I did this last year. I initially was on the Chiefs and then ultimately changed my pick to the 49ers. Nailed that one. So we'll see if I make a similar mistake this time. I do think the Eagles have a lot of advantages in certain areas, but the Chiefs have some advantages as well. They have areas where they can maybe minimize damage that the Eagles usually are able to maximize, and you got number 15 to worry about. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.